So thanks again for all coming for today's program, Job Search Strategies 201. Tired of applying to online jobs and getting no response? Most job seekers feel frustrated with their job search process. So take control of your job search by deploying a proactive strategy. Learn what to do beyond simply applying online and discover how to create some avenues of opportunity for yourself. And this is all led by Kelley Dadah, who has a background in career and executive coaching with over 10 years at Holt International Business School as a career advisor and an executive MBA advisor. Most recently, she served as career director at Iron Circle and is currently the career services manager at Cyber Trust, Massachusetts. So, all 91 of us who are watching live, and the many more that will watch the recording. Let's give a big virtual round of applause to Kelley for joining us this morning. And Kelley, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rob. I see all those claps. Thank you, everybody. So I am thrilled to be here on what is finally a sunny day in New England. And it's great to meet you. So again, a little bit about my background is I have extensive experience in career coaching and career development. It's my passion. It's what I love to do. One of the reasons I got into career coaching is I was in staffing. And I found that I was constantly talking to people and I was really curious about why they were choosing a specific focus, especially when they were transitioning careers. And I wanted to give job seekers the competitive advantage. So when I went from staffing into corporate recruiting, I also found myself coaching my applicants. So talking to them about the position, actually giving them a second chance at the interview. So it was just a natural migration. I had worked for a leadership development company, and there's a lot of coaches there, executive coaches. So it was a natural migration to segue into career coaching. And I'm really passionate about helping people shine. Really, finding what their strengths are, their superpowers, and packaging that up and bringing it out to the marketplace. And technology is great, but I think with that is that companies have the ability to hide behind technology now. So we have the applicant tracking systems. You apply online, and then everybody feels like they're sending their resume into a black hole. So with my background, I decided to really get the most experience I could to help job seekers. So I became professional certified coach through the International Coach Federation, a certified professional resume writer, and a certified career services provider. And then I had worked at Holt University for about 10 years. And that Iron Circle, I was the career development director, and that was a cyber accelerated program where I worked with adult learners who were, I would say 80% of them were transitioning from a non-technical background into cybersecurity. And currently I work for a nonprofit called Cyber Trust, Massachusetts, where primarily we hire interns to work in cyber roles across the state. So that's a little bit about my background, and I'm really thrilled to be here with you today and hopefully give you some tips and tricks to go beyond applying online. And I'm sure a lot of you feel like that you're sending your resume into that black hole. So what can we do, in order for you to take control of your job search? When you send your resume off and you apply online, it's really that the company, right, the employer is in charge of your job search. And when you are able to find some different avenues and create activity, then it's it's for you. You become in charge of your job search. So some of the things that I really want to focus on is, are you planning daily, weekly activities? Are you setting goals for yourself? Developing a variety of job search methods, and then creating tracking tools to record progress. So our agenda, in order to talk about all of that, why should you create a job search strategy? I think one of the biggest things is getting organized. It's simple, but it does really help quite a bit. So we'll talk about how to organize your day, setting SMART goals, developing a tracking tool, and then creating avenues of opportunity. So let's talk about why. So here's some of the reasons why you should create a job search strategy. So one is to beat the hiring funnel, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And I have on the next slide, there's an infographic, and it represents several stages, and it shows the number of applicants going through a hiring process. I think one of the great features for LinkedIn, it shows how many applicants are actually applying to the job and their qualifications. We'll talk about the hidden job market, and these are positions that are not posted publicly. So sometimes employers, they would rather just post it on their site. They don't want to use LinkedIn or Indeed or Dice.com or some of the other sources out there. So when you find these jobs, the competition is much less and might be even non-existent as opposed to these jobs that are posted online. Fun fact is my last job at Iron Circle, I had connected with my boss that I had worked with probably about like 3 to 4 years prior. And I hadn't talked to her in a while, and I asked her what she was up to. And she said, "Oh, well, I'm looking for somebody to develop a career services program for this company, Iron Circle, and previously was called Thrive DX." She said, "Are you interested in that?" I said, "Well, yes, I am." So we started talking, and then a week and a half later, I was working there, and I worked there for about 4.5 years, and that job was not posted. So tapping into the hidden job market. And then when you create a job search strategy, you'll actually decrease your job search time because you have a focus, and then being proactive. So earlier I just said, taking control of your job search. So being proactive will help you actually take control of your job search. So those are some of the things, having goals, tasks, and a structure will help you lead to results and increase your chances of getting an interview. Some fun statistics. One of the sites that I like to peruse is called JobVites, and they poll people nationwide. And they said that about 35% of postings that were found on social media, these are about 35% of the people who found jobs, it was through social media, so like LinkedIn. And then 50% of people heard about jobs from friends and jobs from professional networks, such as this. So not everything is always posted online. I think also because the number of people that are applying to and posting some things publicly, companies would rather say first, who do you have in mind? Do you have any friends? A lot of companies offer referral bonuses now too. So these are just some things as far as why you should create a job search strategy. So this is the hiring funnel that I was talking about. So basically, this is the process that you'll go through. So you'll apply online, and roughly, the average was 262 applications. I thought it was funny that it was not 265 or 261, but 262. And then out of those, there might be 22 phone screens. And then maybe 6 of those are sent to 6 of those resumes of the applicants that were phone screened go to the hiring manager. Maybe the hiring manager interviews about 4 of them, and then there's only 1 job offer. So when you're applying online, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because it's definitely a great avenue and a resource, but when you're applying online, these are the numbers that you're up against. So just having a focus in different areas will help increase your chances of getting that interview and generating some more activity. So I'm a big fan of organizing. So carving out space where you can focus and achieve your goals, however you like to work. Setting up that space, right? So having a place where you can go to daily and feel comfortable. One of the things that I did when I was job searching, I wanted to get out of my house. So I went to the library, and you can reserve a room. And it was also quiet enough that I would bring my laptop and I would sit down and work for a couple of hours and just to get out of the house, or Whole Foods or Starbucks. But wherever you need to go to know, like, all right, I want 2 hours or 3 hours of focused time, and organizing that space is really going to help you achieve your goals. So that's, I think for me and for a lot of people that I talk to, having that like carved out spot that's their own and where they like to work really helps as far as productivity and focus for the job search. And then organizing your day, right? So getting into the right mindset. So think about, your previous roles. Every job had goals, right? So you want to treat your job search like you would your regular job and carve out how many days and how many hours per day you want to devote to your job search. So by doing this, you know that, okay, between 10 and 12, I have focused job search time. I have some things that I have to do in the afternoon, and then I can come back in between 4 and 5, I'm going to do some more for my job search. So having that carved out time and knowing that you have those blocks is really going to help you, as far as reaching your goals. And we're going to talk about, developing goals on the next slide, and then establishing that schedule and developing a tracking method. So, when you think about previous roles and the jobs that you're in, again, like everything had a goal, and it was how were you going to get to that goal? Whether you worked with a team, with your boss, individually, there was always had to be some type of end result. So what was the end result? And then how did you get there? And that's how you want to get into the mindset for creating your job search strategy. So develop a SMART strategy and SMART goals. So, thinking about S is the situation or project, and it doesn't have to be, and probably shouldn't be, well, I just want to get a job. What type of job do you want to get? What locations are you willing to work in? Are you just looking for a remote? Are you looking for a hybrid schedule? Are you open to relocation? So, for that situation or project, getting a job, but then also narrowing it down to specifics, right? So your target job title, your location, what are some of the tangibles that you want in your next job? And then M stands for metrics. So setting solid goals by adding weekly metrics of what you want to accomplish, so perhaps connecting with 10 people on LinkedIn daily. Maybe it is getting one informational interview per week. Could be as easy as, I'm just going to tweak my resume or tailor's not very easy, but tailoring my resume for, these jobs that I found, or it could be following up on job postings. And then action, what are the steps you're going to take to reach your goals, right? So let's say you are looking for a job, and I'm going to use cyber positions because that's just what I'm working in now. So like a SOC analyst, or maybe senior accountant. How are you going to reach your goals, right? So really thinking about what are you going to do in order to get there, right? And then breaking it down, like I said, into those small metrics, right? So connecting with LinkedIn, looking on job postings, and doing some reverse social engineering. So this particular company's hiring, who am I connected with at that company that I can reach out to? So I'll send my application in, but then I'm also going to try and talk to somebody out that particular company. And then results. So describe the exact results you achieved and review the outcome of your efforts. So how many people accepted your LinkedIn request? How many informational interviews or just, interviews, and where you are in the process? And then T stands for tie-in. So it's really reflection. So the week or the day at a glance, reflect on what worked and then what needs to be revised in your SMART strategy. So by doing this, you are, constantly revisiting your goals and thinking about what's working and what isn't working and what you need to do. Like, here's my focus. Here's 3 different jobs that I'm looking for, and how am I going to get there? And then by creating those metrics, right, and creating those small goals really is going to help you get there. So this is something that I created just to give you a snapshot, right? And one of the things you want to do is be realistic. It's probably not realistic to target maybe 20 informational interviews in a week or 5, right? I think that's a lot. So creating SMART goals that are achievable and metric driven is also going to give you that sense of accomplishment and help continue to keep you motivated to move forward. So, here's some goals that I created just to give you an idea as you go about your day in creating your SMART strategy. So maybe, I want to update the career summary of my resume. So I'm looking for a specific job in accounting or finance or marketing. What's the title, and then how am I going to create my professional summary to reflect some of the results and achievements that I've had, and that is relevant to the target role that I'm looking for. And then measurable goals to track your progress. Like I said, maybe it's as simple as sending out LinkedIn connection requests. Maybe it is sending out messages to request an informational interview. So keeping those goals, like I want to talk to 5 people a week. I want to go to one networking event in person and one networking event that's virtual. So thinking about, the numbers and the metrics around what you want to accomplish, and then make sure that it's achievable and reasonable. So again, probably one informational interview, maybe 2 per week is reasonable. 5 is probably a lot. It's definitely a great goal and you can shoot for that, but you want to make sure that you don't deflate yourself and you want to create goals that you know that you can achieve. And then make sure they're realistic and within your reach. So, to go to a networking event every single day or maybe twice a day is a lot, right? So it might be 1 to 2 events weekly. And then time frame and setting deadlines. So resume is usually the biggest thing, right? So people need to update their resume in order to feel like I can move forward in my job search. So maybe that's your first goal, right? So get your resume updated by week 4 of my job search. Or the first week of my job search. It could be revising my LinkedIn profile to reflect my new target role. So these are some of the goals that you can create for yourself when you're thinking about, a SMART goal or, that SMART story. So this is an example that, and I have like a schedule that I built, but, something that you want to think about. And you want to make sure that there's power in numbers, right? So sending out like a handful of LinkedIn connections a day, right? Or 1 a day and 5 a week is probably not enough, but maybe securing 25 new LinkedIn connections that are relevant to the jobs or the companies that you're targeting, requesting an industry chat, which is just another term for informational interview, joining a LinkedIn group. So what are some groups that are active that are in your area of focus, right? So if it's accounting and finance, if it's technology, it's marketing, instructional design is something that I've done. So I joined instructional design groups just to get some more information and have conversations around instructional design. The great thing about these groups is that, it gives you an opportunity to connect with people that normally wouldn't be in your network, but then also to showcase your knowledge around your craft. Posting commentary for 5 consecutive days on LinkedIn. Now that's a tough one, but it's definitely something that's well worth it because the more you connect and talk to people, the easier it will be to get those informational interviews and to secure those connections and talk about different job openings. And then another one could be maybe you want to create a blog post. Maybe you have a website that you want to update depending upon the industry that you're in. So these are, establishing these goals, and then you want to actually create a schedule around them and have that focus. So I have on the next slide, I have a schedule. So, and sometimes if you're working, right, or if you're volunteering, sitting there for 8 hours a day, conducting your job search just isn't feasible. So creating time blocks, you can designate smaller time blocks, mornings, evenings. Again, you want to treat this like you would your job, right? So schedule time blocks in your calendar in whatever method works for you. So, some of the The schedules and some of the items that I put in here or activities is, number one, first and foremost, is your resume employer ready? So making sure that it is employer ready, as well as your LinkedIn profile. So maybe reviewing your resume or revising your resume that fits your target role, sending out LinkedIn connection requests. So let's say that's the first hour. And then from 10 to 11, joining an industry related LinkedIn group, review any LinkedIn notifications. So this is a great one because you can see where are people getting jobs, right? And then you congratulate them. If they're posting something, you can comment on the post. So the more that you are on LinkedIn and the more that you're visible, the more opportunities will come to you and people will get to know who you are and how knowledgeable you are in your area of expertise. And then maybe creating a company target list. So this is something that I work with, all of my clients and students. What are some of the companies that you really want to work for? Maybe they don't have a posting right now, but you want to connect with somebody in that company. So thinking about what are some companies that are local, some companies that are, you would love to work for, and creating that company target list and then connecting with people within those companies. So by creating that target list, it's just another avenue of opportunity because like I said, they might not post something, but if you know somebody and you build those connections, then if they have something that comes up, hopefully they'll reach out to you first. And then the next day, reviewing job postings. So online is still a really great resource because it does tell you what companies have something right now. So reviewing job postings, following up on applications and LinkedIn connection requests, industry chat requests and interviews. And I want to actually pause here and talk a little bit more about this. Follow-up is really key. So there's a strategy around it. So a lot of people that I talk to, they just send in their application and they don't follow up. And it's worth it to find somebody. So actually some of the things that are really great about LinkedIn is that it'll show you who the hiring manager is. And it says actively hiring Joe Smith or Jane Smith, right? So you can click on that and then you can follow up and say something like, I sent in my application. I'm really interested in this role. And it's always a value add. How are you going to add value to that organization? And say to them, here's my LinkedIn profile. If you think that I might have the qualifications that fit this position, would welcome the opportunity to have a conversation. And so you usually want to follow up 2 or 3 times. By the third time, if you don't hear from somebody, then it's like, okay, I'm going to forget about this, move on. If they happen to come back to me, great. In this market, I'm finding that it could be a month later. One of my students actually the interns got a job he applied for. It was a month in time. So it was, he applied for it and then a month later they called him in for an interview and he was floored. He's like, I applied to this so long ago. Now they're just starting the process. So don't get discouraged, but definitely I would say after the third time, you've exhausted your efforts and now the ball's in their court. If you fill this position, fantastic, congratulations. If you have anything else that comes up that I might be fit for, keep me in mind. And then you move on to something else. So, and then LinkedIn connection requests, following up on those. You can also see how active are people on LinkedIn, right? So when did they post last? When were they on LinkedIn last? So if you see somebody was on LinkedIn like 2 months ago, most likely they're not, very active on LinkedIn, so they might not accept your request. So that's one of the things that I started doing. It's how active is somebody on LinkedIn? So you want to try and connect with people that are pretty active on LinkedIn and they post, constantly, or even just comment on things. And then that they're on there and it's worth your time to try and connect with them. And then setting aside time for networking, whether it's a webinar, virtual event, one-on-one coffee chats, if it's a career fair, or any type of in-person networking event. And then, again, leaving time. Do I need to tailor my resume? Is my LinkedIn profile where it needs to be? Do I need to tweak that a little bit? One thing about your LinkedIn profile, it should reflect your target role, right? Or your industry. and talk about all of the great things that you've done. So one of the things with LinkedIn is that when you send your resume into a job, they want to know the facts, right? It's just give me the greatest hits of what you've done. Are you a match for this particular job? And if they like what they see, then they're going to go to LinkedIn. And now I want to know about you as a person. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn is, reflects you, but also like your personality and your interest along with your area of expertise. Because now they were like, well, now I want to know about Joe or Jane as a person. And if there's not a whole lot there, it's not that they get annoyed, but then it's like, it's kind of deflating for the recruiter. So they do want to get an opportunity to know you. And LinkedIn is a perfect example of how you can do that. So in my travels of trying to find job tracking tools, one of the tools that I came up with and I found, and I've actually met with this company, it's a really great tool. It's called Hunter. There's no E, so I put the name at the bottom. So it's huntr.co. And this is a free tool. It also has opportunity to revise your resume on there. You can build your resume, you can build cover letters. I think what's really nice is that if you download the Chrome extension, it will autofill applications. So it saves you a lot of time because it'll just populate that information for you. And then you can save these jobs, and this is a great tracker. So it's a really great tool to track your job search and as far as follow up. You can also, revise the columns if you wanted to revise the columns as well too. So it gives you an idea, like here's the jobs that are on my wish list. Here's the jobs that I've applied to. Here's where I've interviewed, offer, rejected. But keeping track, it helps you track everything that you've applied to. So if somebody says, hey, I'd like to interview you for this, this is, I'm from the MBTA and we have a SOC analyst job. And then you're like, oh, I don't really remember that job. By using this type of tool, it's important that you have the option or the ability to look up, all right, here's the job, here's what the qualifications were, and now I can have like a conversation around this. So when you have like the wish list or you have the applied, you can click on that and it takes you directly to the particular job. I understand too, sometimes companies take jobs down and then they call you. That doesn't usually happen. But if it's something that you're really, really interested in and you're like, wow, I really want this job, then maybe copy the job description and house that somewhere just so you have it for future reference. So we talked a little bit in the beginning. I said I was going to discuss creating alternate channels, right? So what do you do besides just applying online? The first one is networking. I'm a big fan of networking. And I think now with virtual networking, like there's just so many different avenues and you never know where you're going to have great conversations and meet somebody. So these job seeker groups, if you go on to eventbrite.com, it just draws all of the events in the local area and you can pick and choose what you want to go to. And then, a virtual event. So if you're not super comfortable with networking, starting off with these virtual events, it's great. And then going to something that might be a little bit more structured, right? Is there agenda? Is there an opportunity for you to work in groups and have icebreakers? I find that those are easier for people that aren't super comfortable networking, or go with the person that you're comfortable with. Say, hey, why don't we go to this particular event and then we can kind of divide and conquer. Also taking a look at the list, seeing who's going to be at a particular event so you have an understanding of who you want to go talk to. But I find that when you go to networking events, it's not something that's in your comfort zone, either virtual or something that's pretty structured where there's a specific agenda, instead of just like, oh, we're going to have open networking for an hour and a half. It's a little bit more challenging to do that as opposed to something that actually has some structure around it. And then again, job postings, it's just the way of the world right now. So it is a good portion of your job search, but what can you do beyond applying online? And that's what I talked about earlier, is taking control and following up. So who's the hiring manager, who's the director of HR, and connecting with them on LinkedIn, and talking about your value proposition. So it's not hey, I applied to this job, let's chat. It is, I applied to this opportunity, I'm really interested, here's what I feel like I can add to the organization. If you feel like this might be a good fit, let's have a conversation. And then you have another follow-up, and it's usually, I would say, like within a week's time, follow up again. Just wanted to follow up and re-express my interest in the role. And then you give, a few more points about how you'd be a good fit. These are different qualifications. And the last one is just saying, congratulations. I think, you must have filled the role. If anything else comes up, please let me know. I would be super interested. And then again, like having that follow-up strategy really will help you connect with people, get an understanding of what's available and what's not, and then just help you move forward. So if somebody doesn't respond, then it's like, all right, I'm just going to move it off my plate. If they come back in the future, great, but I'm going to forget about it and I'm going to move on to other things. And then another one is agency recruiters. So agency recruiters, it's like Robert Half or Alexander Technology Group, KBW Financial, Accenture. So there's all of these agencies, and there's local agencies too. So going to these local agencies, the recruiters offer a resource, a wealth of information. So they can talk to you about the specific job market for your industry and your target role. Salary information. They can give you an understanding of, well, here's what I'm seeing in the marketplace, and here's where the positions are as far as location. So it's a really great resource to work with agency recruiters, because it just really expands your reach. And they might be working with companies that are, really not present online right now as far as their job posting. So sometimes when I was in staffing, companies would say, I'm not interested in posting this online. I don't want to really read through resumes. So I'm going to have you post it. I want you to do all the legwork, and then I will take, 5 or 6 people from you. So agency recruiters are a really great resource. So, and there's different areas of focus. So Robert Half is great for accounting and finance. They also have Robert Half Technology. I used to work there, so that's why I know that. And then other, if you're like in a specific niche, then just do a Google search and say staffing firms in my area. And it'll just pull up a whole list of firms that you can talk to and figure out, which ones would be best as far as your area of focus. What I would recommend too is don't apply online. You will have to at some point, but this is an opportunity for you to call and say, hey, I'm interested in this position that I saw online. Can I talk to somebody about that? And usually they will patch you through to somebody, and you'll probably still have to apply online and send your resume, but at least you're going to make that contact with somebody. And the thing with agency recruiters is that you have to follow up with them. Right. So top of mind, because they're working with a ton of clients and candidates. So you always want to be top of mind and following up with them. But I would, it expands your reach as far as you have somebody else working for you and sending your resume out to specific clients that they have. And then I talked a little bit about this, and it's target companies. So I think, one of the great things to do, and again, about expanding your reach, is what are some of the companies that you want to work for? So even if they're not on LinkedIn, but you're like, you know what, I think this would be a great company, like Miter or Millipore, thinking about, or Akamai, Fidelity, right? So what are some of the companies that you are really interested in? You think it would be, here's my list of great companies that I want to work for. Here's something that's close by to my house that I would be really interested in working for. So creating a target list of companies that meet your criteria. So again, it could include like just a dream company that you want to work for. It's a great location. So creating that list, and then again, going on to LinkedIn and talking about, I'm really interested in your organization. Here's my background. If you have anything come up in the future, that would be great. Or having an informational chat with them about the marketplace. What are they seeing in the marketplace for this particular role in their industry? So it's a great opportunity to network, and you have a specific focus as far as what you want to network because you're interested in working in their organization. People want to hire people that are passionate about their company. Nobody wants to hire somebody that's like, I don't really know a lot about your company, but I saw this job online. I guess it's okay. So when you have, like, when you build this target list, it's like, here's the companies I really want to work for. And that passion, really comes out as you're talking to people and trying to connect with people. And the other thing too is that I'm going to tie target companies into networking. So when you register for networking events, usually it'll tell you what companies are there too. So that's also an opportunity. Prior to a networking event, you can say, oh, I see that your company is going to be at this particular event. Are you going? It'd be really great to meet with you and talk with you and have an idea of what you want to talk to them about. So taking a look at their website, sometimes they usually will have postings about the news, what's going on in their industry, and you can have thoughtful conversations and make those connections by seeing who is going to be at the networking event and doing your research. Now, that is all that I have as far as job search strategies. So now I want to open it up to questions.
Kelley, would you like me to facilitate?
That would be great, Rob, if you don't mind. I'm going to
Great.
stop sharing my screen.
So, folks, let's give Kelley a big virtual round of applause. There's 102 of us on the line. Kelley, can you believe it?
Wow.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So if anyone has any questions, you can type them into the Q&A box or the chat box. I'm going to do the questions in the Q&A box first. Emily asks, will we get these slides afterwards? And yes, you will, Emily. I will email them along with the recording before 5 o'clock today. Henrik asks, what do you think of agencies that are very specific about job location besides somebody talked about you, please send me your resume? They often don't even tell where the job is.
Yeah, I think that's, I find that's happening more and more. So the job is confidential. They want to keep it confidential. I think it's your comfort level. And if you say, I'm not interested in applying for a job where I don't know where it is, or I'm not really sure about the company. So think of it this way. And I think what you can tell them is, do you really want to send my resume over there? And then have them, say, oh, I'm really interested. And then I'm not interested in the company and interviewing there. So I would just have that conversation and say that you are applying to a lot of places. So one of the things is that if you send your resume over to a particular company, like you send your resume over to Akamai and this company happens to be working with Akamai, it just creates a conflict as well too, because now like they're working with them, you already sent your resume over. And I've just seen this in the staffing industry. I think what happens is recruiters don't want to tell you about the company because they're afraid that you're going to go and try and apply on your own. But I think, having a comfort level and a relationship with the recruiter and saying that, I'm interested in the location, but I really do want to know, like, what is the company before you send my resume over to make sure that I'm interested in it. Because I'm sorry, Rob, but also I can say, like, you don't know who the contact person is. You can tell them that too. I don't know who to contact there. You have the relationship. So why would I not want to go through you?
Right. So Marley asks, when it comes to companies that use AI review as part of the process, do you think it's better to opt in or opt out if given the option?
Great question. So I started with Cyber Trust pretty recently in March. So I just went through the job search process while I was working, and it was challenging. So I've always opted in because I don't really know what opting out means, right? So I have a feeling that you're going through this applicant tracking system. So if you opt out, then it might be like they're doing one keyword search. And if you don't fit that criteria, then you're not going to come up. I think with AI, they're going to scan your resume and how does it reflect in accordance to their job, right? So are you hitting a lot of the key points? So if you're tailoring your resume using AI, I use ChatGPT a lot to help tailor my resume. So if you're tailoring your resume, having it reviewed by AI, I think gives you more of a benefit than not.
Let's see here. George says, if you target companies, they can see if you are following them on LinkedIn. So be sure to follow them on LinkedIn before you contact them.
Excellent point. That is a great point, and I agree 100%. That's something that I used to teach my students. Make sure that you're following the company, because recruiters do check. Well, if you're interested in working here, then why am I not, why you're not following us and everything that's going on in our organization on LinkedIn?
Flo says, thanks for the presentation. There were new things I learned that can improve my job hunting. Mia says, thank you. Was very helpful. Is there a best time to apply to a position? Would you say within 24 hours of the posting? I ask because sometimes it'll be 4 to 5 days before I actually see the posting.
I think that's okay, if it's a few days before you see the posting. So you don't need to apply right away, because they're going to go into LinkedIn. It's going to get funneled to something anyway. So it used to be, I still think like Fridays probably isn't the best time to apply. But I think now with technology, it doesn't really matter, because it's whenever the recruiter, because of AI, right? Because of the applicant tracking system, it's not going directly to an email. They're sourcing it. So it is 100% okay if it's been 4 or 5 days. And I actually think that's a better idea, to see how many people applied to this job, because they're probably going to wait about a week or so before they start sourcing and recruiting and calling people. So I think 4 to 5 days is fine.
We have a couple of similar questions. Devon and Cynthia are asking, how do you know that that an online posting is actually a real job? So Cynthia asks, what about fake job postings on LinkedIn?
That's such a great question. So I just I was doing some research about that, because there are a lot of, they're called ghost jobs. So what happens is that a company is thinking about hiring for something in the future, so they want to create a pipeline. And unfortunately, there's no way to really tell. What you could do is, if it's not posted on their website, but it's posted on LinkedIn, it could be a fake job. You can connect with somebody and ask about it. I'm interested in this opportunity. Sometimes there's just not really a way to tell, and they won't respond. So I think that's like when you have that 1, 2, 3 follow up and then forget it, then you'll know whether or not it's a real posting. Um, I don't agree with that practice. It's been around for a long time, where companies just want to create a pipeline. So they post a job and they just kind of like have candidate supply and build a database. So the best thing to do is to see, are they interviewing? Are they actively hiring? Connecting with somebody and expressing your interest, and then doing that 1, 2, 3 follow up and saying, okay, I'm going to forget about it. And then again, going to the website and seeing if it gets posted on the website.
We have a question from a job seeker. Do you have any advice for someone who is 60? Basically, to combine past work experience with more current positions in order to move forward.
Absolutely. So, with the workforce today, I think that age doesn't matter. It's really experience and what you want to do. And when you only want to go 10 years back on your resume, and the reason being is that that's the most relevant experience. But let's say that you work for a really cool company that is relevant to the job that you're applying for, but it was 20 years ago. One of the things you can do is you can still add that company, but then take the dates off. And I've had clients in the past that have done that, where they've had this like really cool experience that they wanted to highlight. They're like, but it's from 20 years ago. And it's like, well, just take the dates off and then leave that particular company on, and then highlight the past 10 years. Also making sure that you take the dates of anything that's, as far as education. So if it's beyond 2 years, when you graduated, that should be off. You should take that off as far, and same thing with like certifications. So everything really wants to be, you want to have it, make sure that it's relevant. It's within the past 10 years for your work experience, education beyond 2 years, take the dates off. And then you can highlight companies that are that are beyond 10 years of experience, and just leaving the dates of when you work there off of your resume.
Ruth says, how can one start searching for employment in another area before actually moving there? Any tips, Kelley?
So that happens a lot. And I think that's, I'm working with a population now of students, and some of them are open to relocation. So I think a couple of things. Making sure that your city and state is not on your resume, because if somebody sees that automatically, they're going to say, well, she's in Boston and she wants to move to Pennsylvania. Like, oh, she can ask for relocation. How long is it going to take? They're going to come up with all these reasons not to call you before they even talk to you. So I would say taking off the city and state will definitely help. And then writing a cover letter as far as why are you targeting this area and how you're going to get there, and how it's not going to be a burden on them is also going to help as well too. And I think also that's when those personal connections, and creating some of those personal connections. And the other thing too, Ruth, is if you know somebody, if you're going to be staying with somebody and you can use their address, like, or their town, I think that'll also help too.
Anonymous attendee asks, any recommendations for job seekers that have a sizable gap in recent work history?
Yes. So I've worked a lot with clients in the past where they were returning to the workforce. So maybe they stayed home for a period of time, they were taking care of a parent or their children, and they said, you know what, now I want to get back into the workforce. So thinking about what are you doing, or what are some of the things that you've done. Usually there's always something. There's some type of education, whether it's online or certification. What have you done recently that you can highlight? And then also volunteer work, whether it's at a school or a church or, a shelter, food pantry. Highlighting anything that, might not necessarily be paid work, but it's like for your professional development. And then also volunteer work, I think are some of the things that you can highlight first, and then you have your work experience. And that's how we've always, that's how we've always been able to kind of like close that gap.
Stephanie asks, what's a good resource to help you look over your resume and update it if necessary?
So there's a couple, nothing is free anymore, but the hunter.co has a resource over there where on there where you can add your resume, and it'll scan it. I like JobScan. I think that's a really good resource as well too. I have the upgraded Chat GPT. I use that for my job search. So anytime there was a specific position that I was interested in, I would add my resume, because there's a chat that you can create that's specifically for your resume. So I would put my resume into Chat GPT, put the job description. It still takes time because it's not perfect, but I would use that to revise my resume. So I think using AI is definitely going to help you. JobScan is a really great one. And then also using Chat GPT and adding those documents and using the upgraded features.
We have some conversations and comments going on in the chat, which is great to see. Emily asks, any recommendations for applying with a lot of 1 to 3 year job experiences? So nowadays, lots of folks don't necessarily stay in the same spot for very long. So Emily wants to know if you have any recommendations.
So for 1 to 3, that's actually the target, right? Those are my clients right now. All the interns that I work with have less than 3 years of experience. And it's, if you can do 60% of the job, regardless of the number of years of experience, then you should apply. And then if they say that you have the option of writing a cover letter, then write a cover letter. and also highlighting your strengths. So I always say, like, now, obviously, if somebody says we want 7 to 10 years of experience and you have 1 to 3, it probably is out of the scope, right? So they might be looking for management, or there might be some other qualifications in there. But if it's, you have 1 to 3 years of experience and they're looking for like 5 years, that's just a number. If you feel like you can do 60% of that job, then you should apply and write a cover letter as to why you think you would be a good fit for that particular role.
Stephen, with the age-old question of functional versus chronological, he asks, are all resumes these days chronological or another format, such as by experience or industry type?
So they are chronological. That gets I think the most response is having a chronological. Functional or a little bit. I think functional are great for executive level or senior management level positions where you have like, here's the breadth of everything that I've done, and then here's the companies that I worked at. For the most part, it's a chronological resume. That's what an applicant tracking system likes. That's what recruiter likes. So it's really a chronological resume versus a functional one.
Stanley asks, what are 1 or 2 of the most productive ways to use Chat GPT in my job search?
There's so many. I mean, I feel like I can do another webinar on this. I am a huge fan of Chat GPT. So first and foremost, it is a lifesaver when you're tailoring your resume. So and you want to tailor your resume for jobs that, I'm really interested in this position. So tailoring your resume using ChatGPT and using that Write My Resume for Me feature, because you can upload the job description and your resume, and it will go job by job and help you write those bullet points. Also for creating content for LinkedIn. I think that's also a really great resource in using ChatGPT. And then lastly, you can also use it to say, hey, I want to know where are list the open jobs for senior accountants in the Boston area. And then you can give them the criteria and say, what are the job sites I should be looking at? What are some of the companies I can target in Boston, in Cambridge? So those are the different things that you can use ChatGPT for. You have to go back and like refine it as you're talking to ChatGPT, but it does make it a lot easier.
Nancy says, I'm over 60 and have been out of work for a year and a half. I have extensive customer service experience, which would transfer well to retail work. But since I haven't actually worked in retail in nearly 40 years, I have not been able to get even a part-time position. Do you have any suggestions?
So I think for retail, it depends on the store, the location, and where they're hiring. I know that customer service roles that it's hard to find talented individuals that want customer service, that are really good at customer service. So I would say, going into retail, great. You can continue down that path and continue to apply, but then also what are some of the customer service roles? The other thing, with getting back to ChatGPT, so you can put in there customer service. What are some other iterations of this title that I should be looking at and the jobs that I should be applying for? So I would target, what are some of the customer service roles that are posted, and then continue to look. And then also I would contact agencies, right? Because they're always looking for good customer service people. So what agencies are hiring, it might be contract, which is okay. And if you take a contract role, then you can continue to look for permanent work. But if you've been out and you're having some, thank you, Lawrence, customer success manager is a very good one. But if you've been out of work, definitely take advantage of working with an agency recruiter to help get you back into the work fold.
Right. So I think with that, let me just verify no new questions. Okay. So with that, Kelley, I think we're going to wrap things up. Do you have any last words for the audience?
Well, yes, you have been fantastic. This has been an energetic group with phenomenal questions. So I hope this was interesting. Feel free to link in with me on LinkedIn. And, one of the key things for your job search is just stick to it, because the right opportunity is out there for you. And don't get discouraged or deflated. You will find that job if you just put some of these tips and tricks to use.
So, folks, let's give Kelley a big virtual round of applause for a great presentation. Look for an email from me later today with a link to the recording. I will include the slide deck, and I'll have information about some other upcoming virtual programs for job seekers. I did very early in this session drop 5 or 6 of the upcoming webinars in the chat, but I will reiterate that in the follow-up email. Kelley, great job as always, and I'm sure we'll see you at some point in 2026 if you'll have us. Okay.
Of course, I will be back, and I hope that everybody on this call, though, already has a job, so you won't see me in 2026.
Yes, you'll only be seeing me, Kelley. Hopefully, I still have my job, but everyone else will be gainfully employed, and it'll be wonderful. So thank you all so much, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Thanks again, Kelley.
Bye, everybody.